Welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I am Nerder Doug, and tonight I am going to inject this live chat with a D&D discussion. I'm Poison with this nerd.
Nerdarchus Dave. How's everyone doing tonight? How are you doing tonight?
Pretty awesome. I got spring fever. I think that's what it is. It's just so nice out, and I've just been in a great mood lately.
It's miserable here, like
Is
today
it?
and yesterday. Well, it's just been like damp and wet and rainy.
Yeah, it's been rainy, but it's been sunny though, and
Yeah,
just warmer. And the winter's kind of passed by now.
yeah. We've had
April's
some
here. We got our Bad Hair Day annual tradition Beardomancy stuff out on Patreon, so that was cool.
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it is getting warmer. I'm not freezing my butt off in the basement because that's where my workspace is. Which
Yep.
is, all unfinished concrete around me. So it's a little chilly down here. Matter of fact, in the summertime, I end up with the rest of the family trying to hang out down here just because it's cooler.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in the summer. But
Kinda.
not so much in the winter. I don't have to worry about them invading my space.
Mm. So tonight we are talking about poison in D&D, which is interesting because I was super duper prepared for next week's live chat topic, which I thought was
Nice.
So I'm going to be winging this, but I'm a world class DM, so I think I can handle. I think I can manage.
You think so? Yeah. So I just pulling some stats for 5e.
Uh-huh.
I was just curious, like, what kind of things give you resistance to poison, and
Sure.
what kind of things do extra poison damage other than poisons? I mean, the game itself has 14 poisons, and I don't think they've added any. Like,
they may have. I know we've had quite a few. There's definitely some in Treasures of the Tundra, which are interesting because it's like, outside of the damage type, like poisons. I was just thinking about this before we started the chat. Is like they're kind of like a carte blanche sort of way. They're like a tool for DMs in the same way of like things like magical phenomenon or supernatural regions. It's like it's just unexpected stuff too, like outside of doing extra poison damage. Like maybe that thing you just ate's poisonous, and it's like it does something weird. Those poisons in the Treasure of the Tundra make you more susceptible to extreme cold, for instance. It's like that's a great thing for a DM. Like maybe the natives of the region have like blowgun darts with that. It's like, sure, it only does a point, but it's like, good luck now.
Now they just wait for you to become a popsicle and hunt you down.
Yeah.
And then they can just like slide you across the ice back to their lair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting opportunities playing with poisons as either just like interesting things to explore and interact with, whether you're just like harvesting weird substances, or just as another challenge for your players to overcome. And I think there's a lot of space to play with the other conditions when it comes to poison, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Conditions are such a fun go-to. Like for us, when we're creating stuff and we're stuck on something many times, I'm like, well, maybe it'll inflict a condition. And it's like, oh yeah, that's like to your point, like poisons are a great way to introduce that.
Yeah, also like me, like a lot of times me and Ted will have discussions about damage types, right? And anytime like poison comes up or like fire comes up, or like they're the most heavily resisted, the most immunities in the game, and we kind of like offhandedly say that just by eyeballing it, right, without knowing for sure. Like we also, like Ted used to, like anytime he saw an ability that gave you resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, he's like, oh, this is worthless. Especially at higher levels. So, but it's like when you actually go and look a certain way, and then when you actually like examine it, you're like, oh, that's not accurate at all. And like, I've always been curious, like, what is the most resistant immunity damage type? Is it fire or is it poison? Like I'm pretty sure it's one of those. Now, I haven't looked at any of the other energy.
It might be necrotic too. I mean, there's a lot of things, like a lot of demons and undead are just resistant to necrotic.
Well, so
this player characters.
This kind of led me down the road of, there's 506 ish, just because some monsters get repeated. Because demons and devils, if they have the ability to summon, they get 2 entries on D&D Beyond.
Yeah.
But 506 monsters with immunity to poison.
Oh wow! I thought you were going to say total monsters. Period.
No. Immunity.
How many are there total? There probably isn't a whole lot more than that.
1,893 roughly.
Official monsters
in D&D Beyond, yeah.
1,800, really? Wow.
Now remember, anything that has like a variant to it.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know.
It's gonna get listed
like
twice.
A lot of stuff, but still, I didn't think it would be okay.
So that is like almost four times as many monsters with immunity to fire.
Mm-hmm.
So like I thought they would be closer.
You said immunity?
That's straight up immunity. Resistance, right? 74 monsters are resistant to poison. Now, there's a lot more monsters that are resistant to fire at 176.
Okay.
So, like, combining the two, like, when it comes to fire, there's about 300 monsters.
Yeah.
That are going to give you a little bit of a hard time. But 1 feat reduces that by, like, half for fire. But for poison, it's only 74 out of the 580 monsters.
Well, I mean, that sort of dovetails into like a larger discussion about damage types and, those common things. And it speaks to the variety of encounters that you have, in your games too. I mean, it's like, the way a lot of us play where there's like much fewer combat encounters, say, because that's when that stuff comes into play the most.
Yeah.
Like, well, you're good to go if you generally have like, we all have fire and poison resistance, so we're probably most things we're gonna hit. But like, through variety, it's like maybe there's monsters that are, healed by that or something like that or whatever, or vulnerable or just playing with them. So it's like that's kind of like the challenge of D&D. It's just like, well, you're always testing different things. It's the same way we talk about like when people are like, oh, the paladin, my party has too high of saves. Like, how do you challenge them? It's like something that doesn't target those, their decks or save or whatever.
There is always something, and also,
but poison's different than those things though too, because it's 3 things kind of, right? It's a damage type, which can be resist. You can have resistance, so that halves it. But I think wasn't there a feat in Tasha's that like made like is it just called Poisoner? That's like when you do.
Poison, there is a feat called Poisoner.
Yeah. So you could get around it that way, but you're still eating up a feat to do it. So it's like, sure, you can really be that poisoner guy you want, but you're giving up something just to be able to do that then. But it's also a condition, right? Which does what? You have disadvantage.
Yeah. Well, let's be clear, right?
Basically.
If you take Poisoner, it will. It allows you to ignore resistance on 74 monsters out of 180.
Oh yeah, that's true. Because there was.
Out of 580,
straight up immune to it. Right.
It's far more useful for someone that's like if you want to be like a fire mage or something.
Yeah, and then the third thing though for poison, it's also just like a substance, right? Mm-hmm. Like like purple worm poison, and it's like it can be ingested or just if you touch it, it poisons you, or eaten, or
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like just it could be a poison. And it could.
Would you say when those things are immune to poison, like, because D&D is all about the wording and the mechanics and like the keywords of things. When it says immunity to poison, do you think it means damage or just like?
Oh, that's damage. I just looked up damage.
Serum is a poison.
I didn't look up the condition.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
no
damage.
Condition immunity is poison. So, like something like truth serum, they would not be,
automatically immune to, unless. I mean, that's definitely a situation where I guess it's up to the GM to decide. Like, does their immunity to the poison condition?
Hey, if you can get some demon that's typically immune to poison to drink truth serum, yeah, that's really cool in my book. or some, kooky thing.
You're rolling with it?
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting to me. And I think you can make a case for the mechanics of it being effective.
Yeah, well, I also like the idea, like you could do, a poison causes exhaustion instead, instead of the poison condition, or maybe it causes the stun condition, or the blinded or deafened, which those actually make a lot of sense.
Those are real life things. There's poisons that will cause blindness and stuff like that, or paralysis.
Well, yeah, I think what is it? Is it the
Lower you.
is it the drought poison, the sleep poison that paralyzes you if you fail by five
I
or
don't think it paralyzes you anymore. It used to because it was like nasty stuff, and players always want to get their hands on it. It might, but it definitely has some kind of sleep or disorienting effect. Yeah, but yeah, back in the day, it was like if you got hit by a drought crossbow bolt, you're dead pretty much. Like you're paralyzed, and they're gonna just mow you down.
Yeah, I feel like there's a like if you fail by five or more, and I
Oh
think
yeah, is it one
that's
of those? I like that. I like that mechanic.
I like it too, and I think that's a cool place to play with, with adding poisons kind of in the game.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just there. It's limitlessly useful. That's in a broader sense again, to like all the times you see like DM problems or GM 911s. Like, how do I challenge there? How do I do this? It's like there's just so many. It's almost it's fun to think about the specifics in those situations, but it's like, man, you have so many options as a DM, and like
Now,
poison's just one of zillions.
now I feel like so like the way the drow poison works is if you fail your save, you're poisoned for an hour. If you
Okay.
fail it by five or more, the target is unconscious. Now, if you wanted to be creative with your poisons and still have them work like poisons, you might do something along those lines where, like with the
While they're
truth serum,
poisoned.
for
Yeah.
instance, where if you fail by five or more, you have to tell the truth, otherwise it just kind of makes you sick.
Right.
Yeah, in
Or
that
you could do
case,
those sorts of, you could word it where like this would get around, or this would make immunity effect if it was like one of those things where like, if you fail the save, you are poisoned while you're poisoned, blah, 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 this happens. There's some creatures I think that are like that. So it's like, well, okay, then if you're immune to the condition, then that wouldn't affect you.
yeah, exactly. So like if you
Or
wanted
like
to
you could be like, while you're poisoned, you're paralyzed. I think that's what a carrion crawler does actually.
Yeah, if you wanted to have it interact, just like a poison, you could
Mhm.
use that kind of wording.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's also some things where it's like when, like you said, when you're under the effect, you're considered poison, but the effect you're under is actually worse.
Yeah,
So
right.
it doesn't really ever, it doesn't, I don't think it matters unless, like, I guess,
I guess it
um,
compounds it though, because if you get to make a save, you're still poisoned,
yeah.
so you're gonna have disadvantage on it.
Well, or if someone were to cast, like, is this remove paralyzation? Is that still like a spell? Or is it just a restoration or greater
Yeah, I
restoration?
think it's lesser restoration
Yeah.
because it
So if you had
greater
like a
like
spell that could remove the effect,
right.
but only
Probably
one
even cure
effect.
poison. I think there's a cure poison. It's interesting. I was thinking as we were talking about this of like all the characters that potentially have like resistance to poison or the immunity to the poison condition, things like that. Which you could even have poison that just says like this ignores the blah, blah immunity. Um, again, DM it's like basically Rack's fall, but
Yeah, yeah.
and it's and like I was just thinking a little different than normal, because like if you had a lot of characters like that, you threw a lot of uh, things that did a lot of those kinds of damage. It's it might be kind of fun in the sense of like, well, you're showing how cool that is. You know what I mean? Like in the sense of like, well, if you say you play a dwarf because it's like, oh yeah, they're resistant poison, you just like never fight anything with poison. Then it's kind of like a useless thing because it's like it never comes into play. But it'd be fun to fight a lot of things that or encounter a lot of poisons because then you get to show off like, damn, you are hardy because it's like you do have a better chance of resisting it than all your other party members that aren't resistant to poison.
Well, I mean,
Spiders and
I kind of like factor that stuff in when I'm writing material anyway. When I do write material,
yeah,
like if I'm gonna throw some ghouls in, I'd be like, oh, these would be really tough. But I'm like, oh, there's an elf in the party, so they at
yeah,
least have
right.
that going for them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they can't be they're not paralyzed by him or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can always kind of look at it like that.
I mean, you know, it's a super easy like tropey adventure hook too. Just like somebody's trying to poison the water supply. I mean, everybody's from the Joker on downs pulled that scheme in
Isn't that
fiction,
is that
right?
isn't that one of the sayings from Woody from Toy Story?
I don't know. I'm not really familiar with those movies. I mean, I know what they are, but I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
only ever saw the first one. I don't have kids, so.
That would do it.
But yeah, I mean, that's a great way to, I mean, what a classic adventure thing. Like, there's something down in the sewers. I mean, sewers are a gold mine for a DM. All sorts of stuff happen down there. Giant beasts, things
Yeah.
crawling up from the earth.
I
Somebody trying to poison the reservoir.
I do
Maybe
like
maybe the adventure hook is that they already have, and you have to deal with it instead.
I do like the idea of using, like, especially if you have a village or a town that's not really big and they use wells, right?
Yeah.
Okay, instead of a sewer, you send them down. They have to go down the well. Maybe there's an underground water reservoir there, like you said, or lake,
Mhm.
stream, which is the town's source of water.
Ooh,
You have
yeah. Now
something
you're getting
messing
into
with it.
water. So wagon might be lurking down there.
So, some freshwater cave swag.
Yeah. Well, maybe it goes to the sea. I don't know. Yeah, they're freshwater. Yeah, freshwater sharks.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, it's got to be crocodiles. It's always crocodiles.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, it could be anything. Undead could be making the water poison. I mean, if there was just like rotting corpses or specters in the water down there just lurking about.
Do you have a
I'm sure
favorite?
there's water. I'm sure there's aquatic undead of some kind.
You have a favorite venomous monster?
Boy, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just like giant, spiders and centipedes, only because it's like I find that stuff scarier than like monsters as a player a lot of times, just because it's like they're more relatable. I mean, I think like you see a big spider or like a big centipede in your house, it's like ah! And it's like, man, when they're like 5 feet long, or like a carrion crawler. I guess
Yeah,
a carrion crawler. I'll go with that. That's a D&D monster that poisons you with its paralyzing tentacles.
I've used quite a few of those as
Oh,
low
that's
level
such a cool
monsters.
monster.
I know, I know you like
I had
you.
the toy when I was a kid too. It was one of my. I remember those D&D like just kind of flexible rubber
Uh huh.
ones, sort of like KB toys. That was one of my favorite ones.
Warduke.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I know you're always talking about giant centipedes too.
And they're just gross, man. When you go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and you see one in your bathroom, it's like, oh god, like I don't want it near me, and that's like this big. So like
Yeah.
in then like a lot of adventures, it's like 1d6 giant centipedes like come out. It's like, oh my god, that'd just be like when you're first level, you're barely out of you're just a first level guy. That's a lot to handle.
The,
Giant anything, spiders.
the giant centipede actually has one of those wordings, right?
It's like,
Um,
wow, you're poisoned, yada yada yada.
well, yeah, well, because what it is if you so there's a bunch of poisons that are like that, where if you're dropped to zero, then you don't actually die. Something else happens, like you're paralyzed. There's a few of them where you're paralyzed, and this giant centipede is another one of those. You're just you're poisoned for an hour, but even if you regain your hit points, you're still poisoned.
Yeah,
So
I
there's
mean
one of those
that's a
instances.
nasty threat to a first or second level party. A handful of giant centipedes. It's like scary stuff.
It's also pretty creepy, like a centipede the size of a halfling.
Yeah, they're like medium size. Or no, they're small, right?
They're small. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're like probably like 4 to 5 feet long. They're probably like this big around.
Although there is a necrotic centipede, man.
Really? What's it called?
A necrotic centipede.
Oh, okay.
It's from Baldur's Gate, but it's huge.
Huge.
Yeah. So like at that point, it's like a freaking purple worm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that can't get more. I mean, that's like the classic poisoning monster in D&D, right? I mean, is there a more iconic monster whose thing is poison? And it's like, man, even if you're resistant, it's like that's still a hell of a lot of poison damage coming at you from that stinger.
But oddly enough, the necrotic centipede does not do any poison damage. I mean, it zaps you for necrotic damage if you get near it or it hits you.
Yeah.
But no
I mean,
poison.
you got to imagine like a purple worm when it's because it's like a tail stinger, right? That's what I mean. It's got to be like a freaking like battering ram size point. I mean, that would just impale you.
The poison part of it almost seems like insult to injury, right? Because it's literally, literally the stinger is the size of as long as a person.
It would probably like like cut you in half if it went all the way through. Yeah. And that kind of stuff. That's kind of this is sort of related. Question is like, something that people talk about all the time is like the abstraction of hit points, and it's like it is kind of like a silly argument when you think about it, really, because it's like, yeah, you could say it's wear and tear and exhaustion, but it's like, nope, nobody actually. I've never seen people play like that. And you're always like, oh, you get hit or you hit the thing. And also, it's like, well, how do you account for those things? I mean, if it is wear and tear, then like, why would being resistant to fire damage make you take less if it wasn't actually hitting you? Just because it's like you're able to dodge out of the way of it better, but it's still left a little bit.
I guess because like if you weren't resistant to fire, and the idea, if you're saying, well, hit points are actually hit points, and you're actually getting hit by it. Like if a dragon literally breathed on you, you'd be immolated, and that's all there would be to it. Like they're end game. So I see it like a partial and direct hits from things like breath weapons is literally you just getting singed as you kind of like roll out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, if you were like standing in an open field and a colossal red just was like, there's nowhere to get out of the way, you're still just gonna take half damage. And if you fail, and if you make your dex save, none.
yeah, if you have evasion, really good at rolling. Listen, they can't hurt you while you're combat rolling.
You know what? I'll go out. I'll go on record to say, in the same fashion of the barbarian jumping off the mountain and surviving. It's like, hey, when you're that high level, if you want to say you're jumping between the flames, sure. Yeah. Like you're that good.
Right? Well, the jumping off the mountain is less crazy because there's people that have jumped out of planes and had their chutes not open.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't stand up somehow. And then take a great axe and start. I'm good.
That's true. They're not doing that. So, if you were to add some poison to your game, what do you think we need that maybe isn't there?
I like ingested poisons and stuff because it's like that's just things people never think about, and maybe it would make players start, and then maybe it would make some of those spells more appealing, like detect poison and purify food and drink, and like the weird juggling act that often probably doesn't get considered by players and DMs in that situation. Is like, you think like, yeah, but I can't waste my spell slots on those. Like, what if we run into more stuff? It's like, if I'm tailoring the game to you, it's like, you won't. Like, if you spend all your time being paranoid and creating this story about it, and like, worrying about poison and wanting to investigate and go in that direction, it's like, then those will be the challenges that you have. Like, I like that'd be kind of a dick thing to do as a DM. In other words,
have you ever tried offering your players poisoned food?
Yeah, sure. I mean, not that.
I mean, their characters, I should say, not your
players. Yeah. Yeah, sure, of course. Just, I mean, more often than that, it's just to like introduce some effect or something. Like that dinner party encountering out of the box is all about that. It's like, hey, the next time they're at a tavern, like maybe somebody slipped truth serum in their food that was just like, somebody that's been following the party and wants to know, or for whatever reason. Or maybe it's just like whatever,
they got some funny.
They got some, or they just got some strange herb at the market, and they're like, yeah, it sounded good, and it ends up being true serum, right?
I know that I don't think I ever have. Like, I've had so many players that are paranoid of accepting food from strangers, but I don't think I've actually ever tried poisoning them that way.
Yeah. Oh, really? Just like innocuously? Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on your kind of game. So, I mean, if you just hand wave that stuff away, then it probably is not, like if you're dungeon delving, kicking the door adventurers, or like, you're probably not role playing out their time at the tavern. And if you're down in the dungeon and somebody offers you food, you're probably going to be very wary, right?
Like, yeah. Well, that being said, though, like we definitely have tons of encounters where they end up being non-combat encounters. So, like, you could insert shadiness into those where it seems like a friendly person and invite you into their hovel, their home, and then And then it turns out, that they're actually nefarious, and
Mm-hmm.
and their preferred method is to poison them.
Yeah, maybe they have poison that like paralyzes you, but you can still see. So it's like they just see them robbing you or whatever, or doing whatever. A lot of it's just trust things too. Like we always say, like I was imagining in our Dungeons and Delving game, like, what if like Enzo's nemesis like poisoned the ingredients that he knows he uses all the time to cook, and the next time he gave us all our boosting treats, they like did something different to us. And it's like, technically, it's if somebody came to us with like, my GM did this, blah, 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 I'd be like, yeah, it's kind of a jerk move if you weren't into that. But I think all of us would be like, oh, that's pretty fun, because we'd know Ted wasn't doing it like, now they'll all TPK. It's like, I just want to see what happens. You know what I mean? And I think we'd all
just
be
use
like,
a
okay,
banshee for that.
What's that?
Just use a banshee for that.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, if you just like, I mean, you're the player, that would that make you mad, or would you be like, okay, that's I mean, if it was fun. I mean, if
it's all about execution and what is the end point and the end goal.
I mean, you know me, I like weird situations that you gotta like puzzle our way out of and stuff. So I think you do too. So it'd be fun.
Harker Ball. We need more grung poison, but coatable on a weapon. So I introduced.
I have to agree.
In a lot of my games, actually, my players usually introduce it for some reason. The concept of halfling leaf. And so I introduced in my Court of Worms game grung leaf. So and it comes in different colors.
Oh, nice.
So it's basically that world's version of halfling leaf, except for it has more flavors, I guess, more different effects.
You can taste the rainbow.
Because it'd be weird. It's either that, or you're just gonna have grung laying around and people licking them, and that's just weird.
So the people.
Yeah. So, but I kind of like we haven't gotten into it in the game. And narcotics are essentially poisons anyway for the most of them, for the most part. But like I kind of like think about like when you see like the guy in the tub of grapes squishing the grapes by stomping on them. Well, instead of that, you have the grung in the barrel with all the leaf or tobacco or whatever whatever it is that they use for their base in there, jumping around on it.
So the leaf is soaking up the poison from
either that or they bathe in a bunch of them will just kind of like hang out in these tubs of leaf to absorb the toxins from the.
It feels good on our skin.
Yeah, or maybe they get rubbed down. They rub each other down with the leaf.
Okay. That's
how they absorb it.
That sounds pretty fun. Has the group interacted with that much, or has it come up much?
They made the contact of the grung that sells it in the one city they were in, but they haven't. And I believe they picked some up, but they haven't seen how it's made yet.
Okay.
So that could be kind of comical too. Like eventually, if they like end up at the the grung village or encampment, and they're like, they just got done smoking grung doobies, and then they walk upon the scene of grungs rubbing each other down with this leaf.
Yeah,
that they're inhaling.
Hey, you know what? That sounds like it would make an awesome website post. And I say that because it reminded me of another one talking about grung poison. I can't believe I hadn't thought of that either. It's so much fun, isn't it? Like there's those weird effects that they have.
Yeah.
And when I did that one shot with my group where they all played grung, they all had the different colored ones, and I made up some. And we have actually, again, with the frog stuff, like there's several posts about like frog related and grung poisons, actually, new ones.
We do have a
white grung.
We have a video coming out about D&D and frogs.
Oh yeah,
it's in the queue.
It's in the pipe. Yeah, there was that white grung that you saw on your porch. We wrote a post about that. But so yeah, those are super fun. I don't know about the coatable on a weapon thing. I guess that could be fun too if you hit an enemy and next thing you know they have to like jump up and down on their turn, or like they feel compelled to immerse themselves in water that turn. or whatever. Because that stuff got insane when they were playing the grung. I had a random encounter of a giant ape and a giant crocodile like fighting each other in the jungle. That I thought like, oh, this would be fun for them to like try to get away or stay out of the way. Nope, they just jumped right all over them. They're like, we just want to like stick to them so that their body like they keep affecting it. And there was like there was 4 players, maybe 3 players, 3 or 4, and they were each playing 2 grung. So it's like they just split up, and and like they weren't doing damage, so the things were just fighting each other. But it's like they're rolling around in the mud and just like climbing, just doing all sorts of weird stuff. It was hilarious.
Yeah,
so much fun. But I was like, whoa, this escalated quickly, and we had our version of the grung as a playable race on the site. And there's also 2 grung racial feats, and one of them is like you can take it multiple times, and every time it's like you can make your skin this kind of poison after a long rest. And I had like a little chart of all the different effects and stuff. So you can go check that out, people, if you're interested in poison that much.
It's on the site.
Yeah.
Also, didn't you kind of like have the players at odds with each other because they would have different food based on the color grung they were?
Yeah. Because all the green grung couldn't have the good stuff and everything. That's right. I forgot about that.
Basically, class warfare over the food and what color your grung was.
Yeah. Man, that was fun.
So, Christopher Keller, I think it would be funny if the entire town tried to poison the adventure party when they got too destructive or got close to finishing the quest to save money and not pay the adventurers. You could literally just wait until they did finish the quest and been like, let's throw a feast and then poison them. Of course, this was going to have some long-lasting effects upon the trust of your players and you as the DM, especially if your players were already a little paranoid.
Yeah, it's a good way to breed murder hobos too. I feel like a lot of players would be, it's like unless they poisoned them and killed them, in which case they're like, well, that wasn't a very fun game of D&D. Like, hey, you beat the quest, let's celebrate. And you all got poisoned and died.
And you all got poisoned to death. I definitely feel like there were some early games that were kind of like that.
But there could be any number of different effects of poison that they could do to, do all sorts of other things. Maybe not so nefarious. Maybe it's like, it'll just make them like,
gives them a gold allergy.
Yeah. Or just even, like they're more susceptible to, suggestion or, because then they players would know again, murder hobos.
Essentially, it should just lead to more adventure. Right, somehow,
yes.
Or maybe they poison the adventurers and it doesn't kill them but knocks them out or something, and
a villain compelled them to do that because of a threat they represented.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, really?
They either got blackmailed into it or charmed into it or something. Maybe someone, maybe a villain stole all their children. Pied Pipered them away or something, and they're like, if you don't do this thing, we're gonna start dropping bodies off.
That's a great idea for sure, because it's like, well, you want to make them really hate a villain. That's a pretty awesome way. Like, made these innocent people do this.
And it's a great like red herring where you're like, you can like mess with their expectations and their trust and make them really angry at you, and then they realize what happens, and then like that anger hopefully will transfer over to the villain that did the really cruddy thing.
Mm-hmm. And it's a great lesson. One of my favorite things to do in games too, where it's like, hey, you know what? Even commoners can be dangerous. I mean, that sounds like I'm just trying to be like adversarial, but just the fact that like it's not always a big fearsome monster that can undermine or challenge your party. It's like sometimes it's just like a commoner that tells you a lie. Or is desperate, right? I mean, maybe they were like, how are we supposed to stop these people? It's like, well, we could try to poison them with food,
Well, yeah, I mean, I like the idea too of like, whatever happens, they kind of get away really fairly quickly, and then they go back to the town maybe to enact their revenge, and then they find out like what really happened, and then they're
Yeah,
like,
or maybe it's like a poison that affects them like later, right? Like the next time they rest, it's like they're not, they all fall asleep, but like can't be woken up or something like that, deep slumber, so that they could get like kidnapped by some villain's forces.
by the big bad. They wake
Yeah.
up in the cell across from the cell that's holding all the children.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a group. Man, I'm gonna write that down.
Oh, he's taking notes.
Well, that's a pretty good thing too, because it's like then they could. That's great role playing too, because it's like, well, they would have just seen their parents. They'd know that they were safe the last time they saw them. But
Yeah.
you
Well,
could just.
anytime you can kind of add layers to the story,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is so
Make it
much better.
real. Make it relatable.
Make it relatable. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because hey, even the most badass person, it's like, well, if you don't have any reason for why you're so badass, it's kind of boring. Honestly,
Well,
right?
I mean, along the lines too of like what you said with, anything can kind of be a threat, right?
Yeah.
So like if the villain, the big bad, is like just a nobleman and he had all their kids taken and
Yeah.
maybe they come back to the town and he's still there. They could easily defeat this guy. They could easily
Mm-hmm.
murder him. But the kids aren't there. Like where are the kids? He's the only one that knows. If and he tells them, hey, if I don't check in at a certain time or do a thing, then bad things will happen to the kids, and then they have to start weighing like, okay, what do we do?
Yeah.
Because now, and also it kind of brings into the picture this threat that isn't actually physically a threat to the players and something that they could easily overcome. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that if they do, there's consequences, and are they willing to deal with those consequences?
Yeah. And if you're lucky, if you can get, if it gets to a situation where it's like this villainous noble and the kids and the townsfolk are all in the same place and you've defeated the villain, if you're lucky, the players will, or, you'll get some really dramatic role playing and maybe like a representative from the town will decide what to do. But if you're, or it's very likely the players will just like butcher him right in front of the kids too. I could totally see that.
Yeah,
You know,
more than
like
likely.
they're like, oh, he kidnapped him. He's evil. It's like, yeah, but I mean, would you want a bunch of little kids to see you behead somebody in the town square?
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? For a lot of people, man, they have some dark fantasies. So I wouldn't be. I would probably be the oddball on that argument.
I'm reading one of the comments.
I'm seeing a lot of words that I like in her crabs comment there.
Yeah, sea hag, sewers, and
Yeah,
grung.
grung, plague, submerged, yes, all
Although
that.
plague right now might be too real.
Yeah.
So,
Although, hey, man, and to speak to their, you know, profile picture, having crab-like creatures beneath the sewers and stuff are pretty cool too. I see a little crab claw, Sheldon.
yeah. Adding anything to the sewers is cool. I mean, uh, man, I forget the name, but
Every good adventure must spend time in the sewers at some point. It's like that's like a venture merit badge thing in your handbook. You're like, yep. We used to call it in the Dungeons and Dragons MMO. There's a crap ton of sewer adventures, and the effects it has, like sewer pipes that are water's coming out of them and stuff, and sewer. We just call it an adventure shower because we're like, man, these guys got to be just so gross and like just trudging around in sewage, fighting oozes and stuff, and just like walking under like pipes and swimming in it and stuff. And then you just go back to town. So we used to say it was a rite of passage. You get your adventure shower.
so Christopher Keller, how about poison that lowers ability scores or levels temporarily? So I could definitely see a poison shadow essence that lowers your strength. It's so brutal though. It is such it is such a brutal thing when you attack the ability scores. I mean, there's
Yeah,
a
I wouldn't
couple
lower
monsters.
levels just because that's too noodly. It's like to like
Yeah,
have to
I mean they got rid of that for a reason and
yeah.
replaced it with max HP.
Yeah, like
Um,
when you used to like, oh no, you're like, I mean, unless it's like permanent, which sucked, but there was stuff like that. It was like you just lose 2 levels or whatever. But if it was like just for that fight or whatever, it's like that's too
it
much
was a
to take
pain in the
away.
ass.
But yeah, totally, man. I mean, gas could do that, right? I mean, think about even like a like a poison gas that lowers like your charisma, because it's like your force of will. If it just like weakened your wisdom,
I
that would be
think
awesome. I mean, and those are ways that like mundane things can remain relevant in high levels too. Like, if you're assaulting a thieves guild, it's like, hey, they could have all kind of crazy traps like that. I mean, if it just was like sapped your wisdom score, it's like, well, now you're going to be lowered saves against all other things that affect wisdom, charms, and all that kind of stuff, or
isn't that
strength.
kind of like the premise of the one video we did? You don't have enough hit points.
I don't know. I mean, I remember the video. I don't remember if that was the like.
Yeah, let's see. I can pull up the worksheet because it had a list of like all the monsters that attack stats, right?
Oh yeah, like shadows. Is that the one where there was like that fiendish moss that like grew around door frames or something like that? And then it actually made a portal to the nine hells or something. If
but
it was
usually it was you find it around portals to the abyss.
Oh,
and it had like
I
a
thought
confusion effect.
Oh, is that what I thought? It just grew naturally sometimes. And it's like, yeah, if it grows
No,
too much.
It's a fiend. It's an actual fiend.
It is a fiend. Okay, that's interesting.
And I think it's this thing here. This
it had like one of those kooky names, or it's like, okay, sure.
And no, that's definitely not it. But no, yeah,
maybe it's probably either portal demon or some kind of like weird like.
Fiendish portal moss. Here it is. Yeah. the Alkalith. It didn't attack your stats. It basically would cast a confusion spell on you. But it grows around portals, so you're confused and you wander through into the abyss. So
I mean, that's another great effect of poison. I mean, it's just limitless. I mean, any spell effect, any class feature you want, it's like just slapping on a poison. And it's just like, whether somebody's got a blowgun dart or or maybe they're just
so
psychic giant centipedes that's like their poison does whatever instead. It's like it makes you confused or something. Who knows?
Also, too, like if there's an effect that's like kind of strong and you want to kind of dilute it a little bit, so instead of affecting multiple characters, it only affects one character.
Yeah.
Making it a poison or something where you have to hit one of them. That might be a way to do it, so that you can kind of work that ability in. Or if you,
sorry.
Or I was just gonna say, if you want to ramp something up. I mean, what would be funny is something that had like an Ankylosaurus tail that it slaps you so hard you have to make a save versus confusion.
Yeah. I mean, why not, right? Can also make a fantastic like regional effect too. I mean, like there's so many, all these little things. It's like, that's how you ramp up things, for like a lower level and make something more than a stat block, right? Like think about, a green hag or a sea hag. Where are they? CR2, maybe 3. Not too tough, right? Like on paper.
On the lower end, they're not.
But it's like maybe the whole region around their lair. I mean, not layer effect, like regional effect, which is usually like mile around. It's like maybe it's just got a poison mist around it, and it's just like, yep, the whole time you're there, you're just poisoned. And I mean, it's just like it's like, okay, well, so more than likely you're gonna be poisoned almost the entire time. I mean, unless you're totally immune, right? They can sap you, and it's like, there could be plants like shriek, or I think there's gas spores, right? It's like if you go by them, that could be another kind of poison. It's like, so by the time you get to this like simple CR2 sea hag, it's like, man, you're poisoned, you're confused, like. Just all kind of crazy stuff, and then it becomes a lot more memorable than just like, yeah, we fought a sea hag. It's like lasted about 2 rounds, did its one thing, and then we killed it. Like regional effects are. Oh, speaking of regional effects, this is off topic, but I asked Ted what you guys about your game the other day. And he mentioned that he used a gold dragon. Did he use the regional effects? Those are one of my favorite regional effects.
We haven't actually encountered the gold dragon yet.
Oh crap! Sorry.
Spoilers.
Sorry, dude. Oh man.
You son of a bitch.
I asked him what he did in the game, and that's what he said. Oh man. Yeah, they have. Let's see. I mean, and again, this is something you could do with like a poison if you want to consider. It's just a substance. It's just like I'm not going to read it all, but they're fine.
Are grungs AL legal?
You could. I think you can have a certificate.
Oh, that's how you can play them. You need a certificate.
Yeah. Man, everybody that is a content creator who's anybody has had their version of grung somewhere, I think.
Yeah. Well, there's also, I guess, the disclaimer from One Grung Above. I guess that's where the certificate comes in. Outside of certain surrogate character, this document in no way makes a grung legal, playable race in D&D Adventures League or any other campaign where the Dungeon Master hates amphibians with an excess of apostrophes in their name. And yes, if you're not immune to poison and you must touch a grung to heal it, you get to make a saving throw. I didn't even think about that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Grung monk. That's why we made the grung grappler. The tiniest grappler.
Oh, yeah, because of the poison. But I wasn't thinking, like, if your cleric wants to heal your grung, he's got to touch him, and he's going to get poisoned.
Could you wear a glove? I think you could wear a glove, right?
I don't know, man. The grung glove. He pulls out this big, like, oven mitt to heal the grung.
Man, that was fun. That was fun playing that grung with you guys, even though you got smoked in session 0.
Well, he was fun while he lasted.
He was. Jump on in. What additional layer ideas do you have for a black dragon? I love the idea of a layer that's like not underwater, but you got to go underwater to come up in like a swampy cavern, like from an underground lake into a layer of a black dragon. That always seems super cool to me, and just because I just picture it like swimming through the water.
That I feel like that's one of the things that make white dragons the worst, or silver dragons the worst, because they can do that, but in an Arctic environment, which is actually what that was. Wasn't that the thing in the RA book? Like Wolfgar had to coat himself in seal blubber or something.
Oh yeah.
To get into the lair.
Icing death.
Yeah.
Was that his sword? I don't know. That sounds. No, it's a sword. But yeah, I mean that's always seemed cool to me. A black dragon, huh? Because they're typically in like swampy areas and stuff, right? Or like kind of watery.
Yeah. But I feel like there's a few of them, like the black dragon, the green dragon, and the white dragon all have those layers where they're kind of like close to bodies of water.
Yeah. And I mean, the best black dragon layer is Zaxxaroth. I mean, come on. That's like iconic, man.
Iconic, I tell you.
From Dragonlance, the first book.
When Riverwind? Yeah, Riverwind. You
get
to see his rib cage.
Yes, that was as a kid.
Oh, by the way, spoilers.
Those hit points weren't abstracted in that game. It's like that really made you think, like, damn, like that was a good.
Well, maybe he just did not have enough hit points to be in that encounter.
Oh yeah, that's true, because he was dead. Or not, he was still alive. They carried him out. I remember, they put him on like his fur cloak, and I was like, oh god, it's pretty.
That was AD&D. He was in negative hit points. He was closing in on -10.
Yeah, he was probably melted into that furry cloak. I was just like, oh god, nasty. Speaking of, I mean, yeah, geez, that's an iconic monster of poison, the chlorine gas of a green dragon.
Yeah,
I mean, dang, that's like, that's pretty nasty, because it's like, I mean, think how powerful. You think like, sure, in game turns, it's like red dragons breathes fire and stuff. It's dragon's breath, so it's like the most poisonous poison. It's like breathing mustard gas on you and stuff. I mean, that's insane. Green scary, isn't it? Green dragon's breath. Is it like a cone? I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, but it's not any more effective or less effective than other, right? Breath weapons. They're just not like I think in previous editions.
It's all just you know me, man. I'm all just about like the relatability,
the visuals.
Myself in those, just thinking like, That's how I play too. It's like I don't really think about the mechanics. Like, oh, I'm immune to poison, or I guess if I was immune, I would probably have a fun reason why they were. I wouldn't just be like, whatever. Tactically, I can, blah blah blah. It's like that's scary as hell, man. Like if this thing just a freaking mushroom cloud of chlorine gas fills the cavern. It's like, oh my god, that'd be terrifying.
I'm trying to think if in previous editions, like there was a lingering effect of the cloud when they
I was
breathe.
just thinking that. I was like, boy, that'd be a cool way to spice it up. It's like maybe it leaves like a fog cloud for a round or two, or until it's dispersed.
Or a cloud kill, basically.
Does that just do poison damage?
Cloud kill, yeah. Well, it does poison damage, but it also obscures
the
area. So there's that as well. Which I mean, and also like if you're using the variant, your spell casting, which why would you not? I think you're.
I never do when I use dragons. Honestly, I find they have plenty of
stuff to do.
Yeah, for me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I kind of I like my dragon spellcastery.
Sure.
It's a holdover.
Oh, dude, Green Dragon. One of their layer effects is that magical fog billows around around 120 feet. Creatures have to make a wisdom saving throw, or they're charmed by the dragon until the next initiative count 20. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, well, that's because the green dragons are the deceiver dragons.
Yeah,
they're like the tricky ones. Cyan Bloodbane, another
awesome name.
Another famous Dragonlance dragon.
Yeah.
Iconic.
I remember thinking that was such a cool name. I don't think they ever fought that dragon or anything, did they?
No, it was always like trying to weaken the barrier to the Elven city and trying to get at the elves. But I just like the green dragon.
Oh yeah,
the look. Cool. I like the head fin and was it which set was it? Was it the green box? Was the green box that had the knight fighting the green dragon
with the giant sword?
Yeah.
He had like
the Cloudbuster sword.
Yeah, that was the expert. No, expert was black, and the guy might have been. Was there one with the intermediate set? Is that what it was called?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, because there's an eye in there.
Yeah, Beckme. Yeah, expert was the black book with the black bearded guy riding a gold dragon.
But the box was blue, I think.
Yeah, it was like kind of like
it went like red, blue, green.
Yeah, black, gold.
Yeah,
for the immortals.
And oh yeah, the eye was an intermediate because Immortals was eye. That was the gold. Because they went in order too: basic, explorer, then the C.
It was,
but I don't know. I don't remember what the C stood for. I know I had them all at some point or another.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. It's gonna bother me.
I've lost. I'm a little sad because I got rid of so many like D&D and RPG books over the years, just because I just don't like stuff around that I don't touch or don't use, and it's like if it's been around for a while, I'm like, get rid of it. It's going in the trash. And by a while, it's like 6 months.
For me, it's been moving and just like selling things to fund like trips or other crazy projects, or like let's make a movie, or let's blah blah blah.
I'm gonna backpack across Europe.
Yeah, I wouldn't have traded. I still traded that for nothing. But somebody said something about white dragons.
They're just talking about the the exhaustion from swimming through the lake.
Oh.
Yeah, and then if you want to be really easy, really evil, you have a spire in the center of the lake where its lair is actually at the top of the spire underground. So then they have to climb up the icy spire where the dragon can just fly up or climb up because I think they can spider walk on ice anyway. So you have to spend a couple rounds with the dragon trying to knock you back into the water.
Yeah, I mean, right. That just sounds terrifying and super cool. Can you imagine like a big ice cavern with this like spire of ice going up?
It's the weakest dragon, but it's got like the harshest environment. If you really want to use the environment against your players,
right?
I mean,
that's what you get. I mean, that's the art and science of DMing, right?
Yeah.
like knowing that, like, yeah, I mean, any of the, like the Mummy Lord that I love so much is a great example. It's like the stat block is lame, just like Dragon's like, yeah, they're big stacks of hit points. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but it's like all the other stuff that makes him
Yeah,
the
you
bad.
have to really think about it.
Yeah.
That's that's one of the things that keeps me from using dragons too much. Is like I feel like dragons get disrespected when GMs use them, like any other any other monster. I might be in a minority, but
No, I mean, I'm somewhere in the middle. It's like I don't throw dragons around willy nilly, but I like them to, I like them to be memorable. But a lot of times if it's somebody's first game or whatever, it's like,
yeah,
well, okay, it's always fun to put like a wormling in or just something because it's like you got to say you play Dungeons and Dragons and encounter a dragon, right? It's fun. But most of than that, it's like, yeah, they're usually like super threatening.
like the Epic Dragon magazine cover with the dragon hunters, and it's just like a wormling they got hanging from a tree.
Yeah. I mean, that would be hard. I mean, for a low level party, dragons are no joke. But
yeah, well, think about it. It's like trying to fight a tiger that's smart and breathes fire and can fly.
And can fly. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, and like even like real tigers are, pretty brutal, and that's they apparently hold a grudge.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
like
dragons. But I mean, like you said, they're intelligent creatures and magical and such. It's like they could wait 100 years and hunt down your family and stuff, and while you're dead, and be like, your father, your grandsire tried to steal my treasure.
I mean, that would be kind of a cool, like maybe folk hero background or backstory.
You're really digging on folk hero every time we have the chat. It comes up. And I love, me. I think it's fun too.
I don't think I've actually used that one.
No, but like we were talking about the one where you survived the wake of it. Like your heroic moment was like surviving adventures coming through your town and stuff.
Oh yeah. You survived trying to poison the adventurers coming through your town.
Yeah.
For sure.
So poison's a lot of fun. We stayed on topic pretty closely, I think.
I mean, I tried introducing some poisons into our Dungeons and Delving game, but the rest of the party was not having it.
When?
A couple times. I was like, I definitely brought up the idea of poisoning the other contestants. Like
I poisoning. I thought that was going to be what we were doing between dungeon delves, like messing with, I wasn't sure.
I think Tabitha was on board, but but Burke and
whatever. That's
and Robin's character was not having it. They're too honorable in how they wanted to win. I was just there for the money.
So yeah, Tabitha just was there for the proving that she's badass.
Yeah. So far, so good.
Yeah, it's a fun game.
Which tomorrow night, Dungeons and Delvings will return. We had a week off, and I believe we've got 2 sessions left.
Yep.
And then you're up next.
Yep. And we're doing a Just Quest 2, I'm sure there'll be some poisonous things in there at some point, dealing with something like that.
Yeah, I've struggled to figure out what character I want to play, especially coming off of this game, because it's like, well, I just did a chef. Really don't want to do another one. I'm gonna make a GIF busboy.
Okay.
I don't know. How do you feel about black powder? I mean, I don't think it actually means anything in that game.
Yeah, but it doesn't. I mean, there is no.
Yeah.
So if you want to imagine your powers are coming from a black powder gun, go for it. I mean, it's not like a heavy combat game, so hopefully
so it doesn't
character
matter.
That is somewhat interested in food.
Yeah. Well, that's what I have to figure. I have to figure out what my connection is going to be to the ingest part.
Okay.
Having just coming off, having just did a cook character. So I don't know. I think Ted's doing something with being a hunter, and wants to eat all the different types of foods.
Well, I did try to be diplomatic and sent out that survey to see what game people wanted to play.
Maybe a Maitre D.
Yeah. Oh, see, there you go.
Well, so I'm kind of thinking, right? Like because the GIF are very regimented. They're like mercenaries, and I'm thinking he's like going to be like an outcast to maybe a Dishonored GIF because
Okay.
he's actually not really into the fighting.
Okay.
And you know, I was thinking
He's like Steven Seagal in that movie with the where he's on the boat where he's like just a cook.
is that Under Siege?
Yeah, yeah, where he's actually like a SEAL Team 6,
Yeah,
super guy or whatever.
he's just the cook. Maybe I'll play this one as a sous chef. I don't know. I'll figure something out. I have to figure out the look so that Steven can get to work
Maybe
on
he
the art.
carries a huge sword and he's a sushi. He's like the universe's biggest sushi chef, hunter, creator.
Maybe, man. Maybe he's a stowaway on the ship. He's not really meant to. He's not really meant to be there. It'll be Enzo's shtick, but in going the other way.
Yeah.
So we are just past the hour mark.
Oh yeah! Wow.
So we'll be back here tomorrow night, basically the same time, but we'll be playing Dungeons and Delving. We're back here at noon every day for the rest of this week, except for Friday. There will be no live chat during the afternoon. But we'll be back Monday to our regular schedule with those. So until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy. Ooh, I got it right.